Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Sasquatch Outpost podcast. I'm your host, Jim Myers, and I am excited to be back with you after missing last week while we were out looking for Sasquatch with a bunch of horses. And we're going to tell you a lot about that tonight. Had some pretty bizarre things happen, and it's almost always the case. But glad you guys are here tonight. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and the bell for our updates and updated podcasts. And lots of stuff going on to talk about. But first of all, a little housekeeping issue. When we did the contest 2 weeks ago, and I asked the two questions and had Doug Coho and Jennifer Arnold answer correctly, I neglected to get your mailing addresses. So if you will put that in the chat or private chat to Stephanie, one of the two, and give her your mailing address, we will get those gifts off to you. And I apologize for my negligence in not doing that. I should have gotten those gifts off to you right away, and you haven't gotten them yet. So that will be taken care of pronto as soon as you get us the addresses. Secondly, a quick announcement. In October, let me see the date here just to double check. I want to let you guys know about something that is coming up. October 14th, it's a Saturday. And Stephanie will be helping me put this out for advertising, but we are going to have two great Native American guys, Jonathan Dover and his buddy Stan, who are going to be coming for an event that I'm going to call Sasquatch the Native Truth 2, because Jonathan was supposed to come the first time and wasn't able to make it. So now he's coming with Stan. They're both Navajo or part Navajo, and they will be coming to talk to us on that. Probably, I'm guessing I'll do an afternoon event, 3 hours with lots of Q&A. So put that on your calendars. You can see the emails when they come out about booking for that. I'm still finalizing the venue. So I'm thinking the high school here in Bailey, which has lots of parking and plenty of space. And so we will be, it'll be a great time to hear from these two guys. And I know quite a few of you were disappointed when Jonathan couldn't make it for the first one, and he is able to come back. Actually, Jonathan and I will both be in Montana the week before for Montana Con, the conference that Dave Pilates and Joe Hauser are putting on, and that I'll be emceeing for them. So John and I are both going to be busy, but looking forward to having him come. I want to take him on the day before the event to do a little fly fishing. He's a huge fly fisherman, so I'll take him to some of my favorite holes that I don't tell anybody about, and see if we can get him to catch some record trout here in near Bailey. Let's see. Tomorrow morning, I'm heading out to Alabama. I need to go see some family, see my two brothers. So there will be another pre-recorded podcast next week. It's going to be another doozy, just like the last one. This one is two women, a mother and daughter, who live not too far from here. And in 2018, I believe it was, they were hiking up Kenosha Pass. If you've been to Colorado or know the area, you would know what I'm talking about. And they had rocks thrown at them by multiple Sasquatch for most of the way down the mountain as they were trying to get away. And it's quite a story. And so mom and daughter both will be telling this story. And this was an interview I did a number of years ago that I'm replaying because it's a great one. And it is definitely worth retelling. So you can look forward to that. to hear Sage and Sissy next week talk about their experiences with Sasquatch or multiple Sasquatch on Kenosha Pass, or actually the Twin Cones, up on the Twin Cones of Kenosha Pass. 2 nights ago, there's a family that came down from Toronto, mom and dad and an older teenage son, and they wanted to go out for a night hike. So I'd been out in Georgetown for all day Saturday, all day Sunday, robbing trains. It's not a good way to make a living, robbing trains in Georgetown. Don't make any money at it. We have to give it all back at the end of every train. What's that? What's that all about? So anyway, we had a blast. It was supposed to rain both days. It didn't. And so we actually got a little hot, but that was the last of those events we're doing for the year. And anyway, more fun than 60-year-old men should be allowed to have. But I got back from Georgetown, and then almost immediately had to turn around, barely had enough time to clean up and change to take this family out. So I took them to an area that I hadn't been to in a couple of years. It was a place that Jill Herrera and I had taken a bunch of guys who wanted to go on an expedition and wanted to film it. And they had so much gear. We had to take horses and pack all the gear in. Man, that was a lot of work, way too much work. And, but I hadn't been out on that trail since then. So I took him out there. Daphne came with me, which was really nice to have Daphne along. She doesn't do too many of those night hikes, but she came, and we went out and we got back in. Now, as we were coming off of County Road 68, we turned in where the Colorado Trail crosses County Road 68. There was one car there, and this was about 7:30 or 8 maybe. There was one car sitting there. Now, when there's a car sitting there at that time in the evening, that means they either parked and then got a ride up and they were hiking back down that section of the Colorado Trail, and then we're going to pick up their car when they got back, or they were in there somewhere camping quite a ways in. And so we never saw anybody. We hiked in where we were going, got in about 3/4 of a mile, and I decided to do a call. I did a call, and we were kind of chit-chatting afterwards, and I heard a response, and we were talking, so I didn't catch all the response. So I said, let's stop talking for a second. And it had already stopped. So I waited a minute. I did another call, and sure enough, I got a second response, kind of a high-pitched scream, like "woo!" And it was in the distance. It was like back where our vehicle was, actually, somewhere in that direction. And I thought, wow, I never get 2 responses. I did it a third time, and I got a third response. And then after that, anytime we did anything, we never heard anything. So that was really interesting to get 3, and every response was virtually the same tone, rise and fall. That was interesting. And again, could it be somebody from that vehicle that was answering us? It could be, but they would have to be within earshot of us, which is unlikely because we were 3/4 of a mile in. They were probably the other direction on the Colorado Trail. So I doubt they could even hear us. And so my guess is it wasn't people, it was a Sasquatch. But that was very interesting. I don't have that happen very often. Then we saw eye glow through the trees, and I told them, this never happens. We never get 3 responses and then see eye glow. And so we were all looking through the binoculars at these eyes that were probably 50, 60 yards from us. And so that was great fun. I'm always excited when people that I'm taking out have an experience that they can look back on and say and tell people a story. Yeah, we went out and this is what happened. And because too many times we go out and nothing happens. It's quiet and there's no noise, no indication that they're out there. So I was excited for their sake that we had so much happen. So if you've ever come out with me for a night hike, that potential is always there, but I don't set it up. I don't put anybody in the woods. Nobody knows where I'm going. And so what happens, happens. And if nothing happens, it's the luck of the draw. If something happens, then it's a gift. It really is a gift. And that's what I told them. They were a little nervous because the sound came from the direction of our vehicle. So they're thinking, oh, we got to go back that way where the sound came from. And I said, yeah, don't worry about it. I said that consider it a gift that they even bothered answering us if that was a Sasquatch. So that was fun. Okay, let's see here. Steph, why don't we play the SquatchCon virtual conference real quick?
Are you ready to uncover the mysteries of Bigfoot? Join us for SquatchCon Idaho 2023. This year, we're bringing the magic directly to your screen, or join us in person. Witness the world premiere of the enhanced Paul Freeman Bigfoot footage. Doug Hychek discovered a secret within this enhanced video you'll have to see to believe. Hear from an all-star panel of Bigfoot experts like Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, Cliff Barackman, Brian King-Sharp, and Michael Freeman. But that's not all. Get exclusive online bonuses such as Bigfoot-themed wallpapers, a Bigfoot coloring book, an interactive Bigfoot quiz, Squatch Nut Field Guide, get a copy of the Freeman Bigfoot Files ebook, and more. Whether you attend in person or watch it live online, you'll be part of an unforgettable experience. Don't miss out on this unique opportunity. Secure your spot today. SquatchCon Idaho 2023. Step into the unknown.
So you can look for tickets at hangarpublishing.com for that conference. For the conference in Montana, it's a 2-day event. The first day is a tour of the Montana Vortex, and then kind of a meet and greet. That one is sold out. The Sunday event where everyone's going to speak is still open. If any of you are interested in coming, I know a lot of you feel like it wouldn't be worth to go for 2 days. That's totally up to you, but you'll get to hear all the speakers if you come on the Sunday. So, all right. So my guest this evening is Shari Peterson. Now, I've known Shari going on 10 years, probably, maybe more. She's been with me really from the very beginning. She was on probably one of the first. She and Tammy were on one of the first trips I ever took, or hikes I ever took anyone on. And she and I had a lot of experiences on that very first hike, along with CJ. And we've had quite a few experiences since then that we've shared over the years. If you come in the summertime on weekends, Shari's often in the store helping us by giving guided museum tours free of charge, which I really appreciate. And so she fills in for me a lot, and totally confident in her ability to take someone through the museum and do a better job than me of giving them a great tour. And so we've been together as friends for a long time. And Shari's also an author. She wrote a book called The View from 13F about an experience she had in 1989 on a 747 aircraft that took off from Hawaii. And shortly after takeoff, the cargo door blew out and sucked out a bunch of people. And Shari was literally on the edge of that hole, holding on to one of the other passengers who probably would have been sucked out. Ironically, and you'll have to read her book to get the whole story, which you can buy on Amazon. I encourage you to look up The View from 13F. ironically, the seat that Shari was supposed to be sitting in went out. And the guy who was sitting in that seat wouldn't move when she asked him to move. So she sat further in towards the aisle, and it saved her life. And so serendipity, what can you say? So let's bring Shari in, and we'll talk about our time out horseback riding. Welcome, Shari.
Hi, Jim. Hello.
Glad to have you.
I'm so glad to be here with you.
We've been talking about getting you on since the first podcast. Actually, I've talked to you, and we finally got it done. And it was a good suggestion of yours to wait till after we went out together for the last horseback trip so we could talk about it. And there's a lot to talk about. So, but let's talk a little bit briefly about, when we first went out. I don't remember how you found us to even ask to go out for a hike.
Well, went for a drive in the mountains. I live in Denver, and you're about 50 miles from us.
Right.
And I stopped in this store that had a big Sasquatch on the front and talked to this lovely lady with a British accent.
Who might that have been?
Who was that? Hi, Daphne. And I came back to Denver, and I called my friend CJ, and I said, hey, if you're not busy next weekend, let's go up to the mountains. I found this really fun place, and we can just hang out. That's how we met. And we said, right, let's go for a hike. And next thing you know,
off we went.
Yeah, if you'd have told me 10 years ago, I would be where I am today as far as my level of experience with the Sasquatch people.
Wow.
No. What are you, crazy?
Me either.
No. So that first day we had probably more experiences in that one hike than I've had in any one hike since.
Yeah, I think we did.
It was amazing.
Which is weird. That happens so often when someone's on their first time out. It's almost like decisions are made beyond our control that they were going to have an incredible experience. And we did. We didn't see a Sasquatch, but we saw amazing numbers of tree structures and arches, and more than we usually see in one hike. So, but that kind of sealed it for us, becoming friends and starting to hang out. I started the Sasquatch Outpost research team at that point, and Shari and CJ both joined it, as did Tammy and others. We kept that going for quite a few years. We would get together monthly and just talk about stuff that was going on and where we'd been. If anyone had anything to talk about or someplace they wanted to take other people to go show them. But Shari certainly has developed your own view of Sasquatch and your own experiences. You've had a number of your own experiences. And I don't think on this podcast I don't think when CJ was on, we talked about your encounter that you had with her near Bailey. And I would love for you to tell that briefly, just so people get an idea of what's one thing that did happen to you guys.
Well, I think the one you're referencing is when we were driving along on the road to Lake Wellington, which is a beautiful road, just 10 miles from your store, if that, just on the other side of the highway. And we noticed this enormous buck deer laying next to the road. And we're driving very slowly. It's a gravel road. And he was so magnificent. And we drove by, and he was maybe 10 yards in. And we didn't stop, but we just looked at him. And as we drove by, he was like magical. And we're going, did we just see that? And we pulled over. And all of a sudden, we both get zapped. And meaning, I'm looking out this window, she's looking straight ahead, and neither one of us can move for probably about 7 minutes. We're just absolutely stunned. And at the same time, we both turned and looked at each other and said, what happened? And we looked out, and there was a Sasquatch the trees are such that there's no foliage up till about your shoulders. So we looked out maybe 50 feet away. I mean, just right there was one, and he was crouched down like a linebacker, and he was going back and forth. And we said, "Oh my God, let's go." So we start walking towards him.
Which most people wouldn't have done.
I know, but
I get it, but most people wouldn't have done that.
But we did. We walked towards him and went about 3 steps, and there was a large log, and we both looked down to step over it. And when we looked up, he was just gone. So it was looking down, looking up, and it was like, there is no way he could have disappeared. And he was far bigger than the, small trees. So.
And you would have heard him if he had run off or
absolutely, or seen him, or something. But we made a pact from there on out. When we had one in our sights that way, and we were going to step over a log, we'd call out, one steps at a time. The other one keeps eyes on. So we have a plan now. People go, "Why did you shoot your camera?" Why? If I'd have looked down to grab my camera, I just want to.
He'd have been gone as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that whole day, and that's just one of the things we had happen.
Yeah, and you and CJ have had quite a few things together as well, and I think you're both what I would call sensitive people. So you sense things, you sense the presence of Sasquatch. I think you sense other spirits that I've learned a lot from both of you, actually, just watching you, talking to you. Trying things out, which happened on this trip as well that we were just on. So, but that was just one of the experiences. Shari's had multiple experiences, and we could spend the whole evening just talking about those, which it would be an evening well spent. I'll probably have to get her back on to talk about those things. But what we really want to talk about is this trip that we both went on, where we, it was an interesting trip from the beginning, from the get-go. We went out, Jill and her son David and I went out, set up the camp on Sunday, and got it all set up, went and got the horses, didn't get back to the camp till dark. I mean, it was just getting dark. So it was a very long day, and got the horses settled and fed and watered. And that night, I don't know that I heard much. I was pretty exhausted. I just slept. I seemed to force myself awake once in a while to get up and check the horses, make sure they're okay. And the only things that happened that night was the horses kept fighting with each other. So we had to keep getting up and separating them, pulling their ropes further apart. It was annoying. We took care of that problem after that. But so the next day we got up, and the plan was Shari and the 3 other guests, her friend Janelle, Steve, and Linda, were all going to park about a mile and a half, maybe, out towards the main road. And then we would bring the horses out there, and we would pick them up, get them on the horses, and we would ride back to camp. So we get the horses already saddled up. I had never packed 2 horses behind me, and at least 2 of the horses had never been pulled or ponied ever. So one of them, I know all of Jill's horses. They're wonderful horses, except for one horse. That's their daughter's horse, and his name is Storm, and he lives up to his name. And we got partway out on this road, and Storm freaked out, popped the line, went bucking off into the woods, and we were already late. We were like 45 minutes late getting ready to go and get the guests. And so at that point, Storm wouldn't come. He wouldn't come. None of their horses we had that trouble with. If they get off their line or whatever, they just stop. We go get him. Storm, he wouldn't come. He's such I won't say what he is. And so we just said, okay, we have to go back to camp, and I'll get my truck and I'll go pick him up. So we rode back to camp, and he just followed us, of course, but he wouldn't come to us. So we get back to camp, and I jumped in the truck, and Jill took care of getting Storm and all that. So that was a precursor of things to come, unfortunately. So I went and picked everybody up, brought them back to the camp, and got everybody settled, had some lunch, and then we went out for a first ride, and it went well. I mean, Jill rode Storm, and other than him jumping a few times, they did okay. And there were a few tree structures and things that we saw on the way. Although you made a remark to me later, even after the whole event was over, about what you felt was the best discovery time for you. What did you tell me?
Going on the horseback was really interesting, but we really saw more things when we were walking around the camp, and the sense of them being there was enormous. My friend and I and Jill, and I'm sure Linda and Steve also, you had a sense they were just around. And I didn't get that when we were horseback. So
yeah.
And then after
hard.
that's when everything started happening.
Yeah, it's true. No, I think people that love to horseback ride, it just gives another element of fun for the event. But it's going out walking during the day or going out walking at night when things really happen, because you're much closer to nature, and you see things that you don't see on a horse, because on a horse you're focused on riding the horse and being safe and all those things. So yeah, you went out for a walk. I was tired again. I took a nap that afternoon. I can't remember who went with you. You and Jill and Janelle, I think.
Yep.
Went out for a walk.
Yep. And we were all going to lay down for a little nap. And then we said, let's just go for a little hike and see what's around here.
Yeah, that was the end of the nap idea.
Cow. Holy cow. Well, Jill is extraordinary. And we also very much enjoyed everybody in our group. It was really a good group. Yes, she has a sense for things, and she's also an expert tracker. So she would look at things in the grass and be able to say, this is a new print and look how big it is, and this is broken, and let's go over here. And we were finding just a lot of things that were indicators of Sasquatch. And later on, it was proven.
Yeah, and I think that first day there's a little trail that kind of goes behind where we were camping, off into the woods. And so you guys kind of followed that trail, and let's put that PowerPoint up for the first couple of photos, because you guys came across a section of trail. Go back to the beginning of this. Is that the first one? Yeah. So the trail, you can't really tell here. The trail crosses in the lower left corner of that picture. So these aspen trees, the two further ones away that are leaning over, I think were leaning over that day. And so you guys found, I know Jill mentioned to me that she had seen a couple of trees leaning over and wondered if that was Sasquatch at work or something else. And so that's what you guys saw that first afternoon. And you found this big tree. I think you found the tree that afternoon that had the top, I think it had been struck by lightning and the top had exploded. I mean, there was just no top. It was a big fat ponderosa pine, and about 20 feet up, it's just the whole trunk is there, but nothing above it. And you and Janelle both, maybe Jill too, both felt like this tree, there was something significant about this tree. What would you say you sensed?
Well, we're walking along, pardon me, we were walking along, and all of a sudden Jill saw it first. And we all just stopped on our tracks, and she had goosebumps everywhere. And we're all going, holy cow, what is up with this tree? So we walked over towards it, and it was just vibrating with energy. I don't know how else to say it. And there was just a lot of things around there that were, I don't even know how to say it. You had to be there, but it was definitely
Yeah.
a tree that had been, it is a symbol of something or is important or something to it, because it was extraordinary just in its presence.
Yeah.
And it was almost breathing.
I mean, there's lots of trees. It's surrounded by trees, but you don't get any sense from those trees that.
No, energetically, it was almost like there was an enormous light shining down on it, or it was putting a light off, and it was just magnificent.
And, this is something I've encountered a few times with trees. Now, there are trees like the one at Glen Isle Resort that are spirit trees that have been manipulated by Native Americans long ago. They're usually in some kind of a shape, and they use them in their worship. They have very strong spiritual significance for, in our case here, for the Ute and Lakota Sioux. And so, but this is not one of those. This is a tree that, at least it doesn't appear to be one of those spirit trees, Native American spirit trees. But this tree had something about it. I couldn't explain it either. So they came back, told me, that they'd been out and seen these things. And so after that, I think we just had dinner. And did I take you out for an evening ride that day? I think we did.
We went for a night walk.
Oh, a night walk. That's right.
But prior, may I interject one thing?
Sure, absolutely.
A lot of things. Prior to that, in part of our walk, we came along that path that you just showed.
Yeah.
There really wasn't anything there. And kind of fast forward, there weren't a lot of paths there. It was kind of a deserted place. So this path was well traveled, but it just felt differently. And so we walked by it and, noticing not much. But every time we walked by after that, there was another structure built within hours of us walking there. And if I'm getting ahead of, I'm sorry, but it was so significant because we would walk that path. And how far was it from our camp?
Maybe
100 yards?
Couple hundred yards.
Yeah, it was right there. So somehow we always ended back up on this path, and we'd walk it and go, holy cow, this wasn't here when we walked it 4 hours ago. We'd go back, and now something else had been created and something significant.
Yeah.
And it.
Yeah.
So we had. So you got to see this.
So things were happening while we were there. I showed the group on the first day, right after they got there, just behind where we were camped. There's kind of a marshy area, and there were 4 great big tree breaks. I forgot to get the pictures of those loaded, but they were huge. I mean, they were all 4 broken the exact same way, but the tallest one was probably 25 feet up. I don't know, really high. And the previous time we had been out there, maybe a month before, Wayne was with us. And during the night, Wayne heard this enormous tree knock or tree crack. And when we went out the next day looking and found these trees, one of them had been broken like that night or the night before or a few nights before, because the leaves were still green. It was a fresh twist and break. Nothing else broken around it. There was no wind. We had no storms that first trip or during our trip, actually. And so everything weather-wise was very quiet both times we were out there. Little wind, but other than that, nothing else. So that night, so Janelle and Shari were in a big tent together. The other 2 guests were in their own tents. And so, again, I was too tired. I didn't hear anything. That's what comes from organizing these events. We're working pretty hard, and I'm just crashing at night. But tell us what happened that first night in your tent.
Yes. And another thing real quick, when we were back in that marshy, walking around the spirit tree, for lack of a better term, we stopped for a moment and I had a rock thrown at me. And I saw it coming in low. It was almost ankle height, but it came in fast and hit a spot and then just dropped. And I'm going, look at that. So we started waving, like, hello, we're here. We're, friends.
I forgot about that.
Yes, and we stood there a minute longer, and a second rock came in. I did not see that one come in. I heard it hit and fall, and they were almost identical in size. And
How big were they?
about the size of your thumbnail.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was looking around because I have a slingshot and I was going to as Jim knows, and I was going to practice with it. I couldn't find a rock around there to shoot. So
yeah,
like,
there's not many.
Yeah. So
I don't remember too many rocks that throw themselves at people.
No.
So something threw them. So yeah, that you told me that after you got back from that walk, and that was significant to me that
I wanted to remember
that it happened when it was just you ladies. When us guys went out there with you, that didn't happen anymore.
That was the only time it happened.
That was the only time. Yeah. So that night you guys had some things happen outside your tent, I think.
Yes. And this is one thing, and I recommend it to you, Jim, because our tent, for whatever reason, you'd put a tarp around it, and on one end it had extended probably a foot and a half. Couple feet. Yeah. So, settling in, and all of a sudden somebody's walking on the tarp, and I go, Janelle. She goes, I hear it.
Yeah, so which is different than walking on the grass. They can be very quiet, but not walking on a tarp.
Not walking on the tarp, and it was so clearly footsteps, and we could hear real heavy breathing by my window. But before that, the tent. If I may back up real quick, there was some weird strangeness going on anyway. So our tent had 6 windows. It's fairly large, and before we left, we zipped them all up. Now I've known Janelle for almost 50 years, so I know she's we just here's what's happening, so we did it. We come back and somebody had unzipped one of the windows.
We were all gone.
And just one window. And we walked in and looked at it. We both went, okay, no.
So after that, we were all witnesses. Every time we would go out, we'd go look at their tent and say, okay, your windows are up. We're all witnesses of it.
We're all waiting for this again.
Yeah.
But during the night, there was a lot of activity around there, and walking and grunting and conversation or something going on out there. And Janelle and I could not get up and look.
Which is interesting.
I've seen it in the daytime without a problem. I have a thing about night anyway. And if you read the book, you know why. But dark is a problem for me. So I just couldn't look. But you could hear them. You could hear like pushing on the tent and breathing in the window, and there was no doubt we were wide awake laying there, and my heart was off the charts.
All you had to do is get up, Shari, look out the window, unzip the window. There it is.
I know. So I told, so the next day we got up and looked around, and and again, the next day, both Janelle and I both looked at each other and said, why didn't we do that? And there's no explanation.
No. Weird things like that happen when we're out, right?
and back to like you said, there's a lot of weird things that I can't explain, but ever since I've been a kid, I kind of pick up on stuff that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And there's always been that. I always thought everybody could do that, but apparently not. So whatever. But that's what was so surprising to me, that I couldn't sit up and look, and I could hear them. You don't have to fear us. There's no fear. And I'm going, okay, then if there's no fear and you're here to see us, let's call it a night and come see us in the morning. Let's do this in the daytime. That's what I told them. So apparently that worked.
I guess they left you, huh?
Yeah.
So the next day, I think we got up and went the idea was we'd get up and go for a ride.
Yes, we did.
And we did. We had some more excitement with Storm, which I won't go into, but Storm did not go with us on that ride. I took everyone else out. Jill stayed back in camp. So the Storm won't be coming with us on future expeditions. I decided that much anyway. But so we went out for a good, probably 2-hour ride. It was a long ride. Yeah. And we got back and went out for another walk, and this time we all went. So let's go back to that PowerPoint. And so go to the next picture. So these were some of the tree breaks that were right there. There was a bunch of stuff happening in one place. So there were 3 tree breaks, I think, right next to the overhanging trees. So go ahead and show the next one. I think it's another tree break. Yeah. So we get back. The ladies had told me that things had changed, and I had to go see for myself. So keep going. Let's see. So this was the first day, I believe, because I don't see what transpired after that. There's the leaning trees over the trail from one side, but that next morning, keep going. So this is hard to tell. Sherry's looking up. I wish there's a way I could do a pointer. But there were 2 aspens that were pulled across the trail from opposite sides and were crossed and were joined together by the branches. So they stayed in that shape. So keep going. There's another. So that's what it looked like when you're standing underneath it. That was not there the day before.
No.
And we'd had no storm. We'd had nothing happen that night. So those, yeah, there's another shot from a different angle.
The significance of this is something enormous grabbed 2 aspens and pulled them across a path and then wove them together. So they were actually woven. The little
to keep them attached like that.
Woven. I mean, and it was in a way that they were not going to be separated. I mean, it was a structure. But who grabs 2 aspens and pulls them over a path? Because that was probably 7 feet up, right?
Oh, more than that.
Where they intersected. And that's where we walked.
Yeah.
Came above us. Yeah. And went, holy cow, that was not there. And you guys knew it. You saw it. We saw it.
And there were a couple of low aspens on the trail that we had to step over that weren't there the first day either.
No. So part of this too is this is a very, the path, and that was just hours between each event that something significant was added each time. It went from nothing to this.
And it kept developing. So we knew that they were active. And so, and the other 2 guests were in their tents. They didn't really hear anything. I think they were pretty tired that first night. They slept through the night. The second night, again, I'm going to let you share what happened the second night, and then I'm going to talk about this app that we've been using it's a new thing for me, but I want to talk about it anyway. So the second night, I think you may have had more activity outside your tent.
We had more activity, but this time it was clearly a juvenile because it was feet running very quickly, and they were padded, and they were on the tarp and off the tarp, and they'd run back and forth like they were playing tag with our tent. And it wasn't as heavy. The footsteps were more patter than stomp. And it would race around the tent. And again, it was, you don't need to fear us. And at one point at the very beginning, and I've never had this happen, but I'm laying there and see, it gives me goosebumps now, but it was something started at my feet and just completely scanned me. It's like I had an electrical MRI going up over me, and it stopped, but it was a complete scan and I couldn't move. It was the oddest thing ever. And I've kind of been off ever since that happened. I mean, I'm just
have you had that happen before?
No, nothing like that. I felt myself being scanned, but not to that degree and that intensity. I mean, it was so electric and so otherworldly versus, it was like getting the biggest electric shock you've ever had, but it's full body and it's not harmful.
Yeah.
And they, but again, it was a lot of activity. And so I recommend when you do this again to put some tarps under the tent just so you can hear it, because it does wake you up.
Stick them out on the sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Just put them around the edges. And
yeah, it's a good idea.
Yes. So that little guy, the next day, Jill came over and looked again. We said, please take a look here. And she said, I'm going to speak for you, Jill. She is a vegetation expert, because she wants to know when you go out, what is around, what you can eat, what your options are if you get stranded. So very smart. So she remembers when they put the tent up, all the way the topography was around there. And when Jill came and looked at it the next day, she's going, this is all trampled down. None of this was here. She could see where there were little footprints. And at one point there was some kind of sand and there were two little butt cheeks in the sand. She said, that's clearly what that is. And I'm going, well, they're definitely recent. And it wasn't me. And it wasn't Janelle. And sure it wasn't anybody else.
What did we call her? A vegetationarian?
Yeah, there you go. I learned a lot. I
Vegetarian.
mean, she taught me so much about tracking and such, but
Yeah.
you know, how the grass is broken and how she could prove that this was newly broken grass and nobody had been there. I mean, who was there? It wasn't us.
So I'm going to tell you about this app. Just a second here. Let me pull it up so I can look at it while I'm talking. So I'm stretching it here into the paranormal. So I got this from Alan McGargle and Jesse Morgan, and we've been doing things together. And they're ghost hunters as well, Bigfoot researchers. So there's an app called Ghost Tube SLS. Now, if you've watched any of the ghost shows like Ghost Brothers or Ghost Hunters, a lot of times they'll use what's called an SLS camera. It's basically a part off of an Xbox 360 game. I believe it's a camera, and I'm not sure what else is involved. And then you use a tablet, iPad or something to look at. And the idea is this software can sense energy that where there's nothing there. If you point it at a person, what it does is it puts a stick figure on the person, a green stick figure, and as the person walks, the stick figure kind of stays on them. But then you can point it sometimes into a void and something shows up in the void, or you can point it at a tree. And so show video 1. This is a tree up on Glen Isle. And you can see that this is what it shows. And this figure was only on that tree. I think on this video, and on the wood pile. That was the amazing thing. But see that other tree there? There's nothing. So it's strange that it kept popping up these figures on the wood pile. I'm not even going to attempt to explain what this is because I'm not sure I know. But on this tree, it really was active. And this is a spirit tree. This has been confirmed to be a spirit tree. And I pointed at other trees just to show nothing. It's not showing anything. So, because I was interested to see what would happen there. And then I would go back to this tree and you can just see how busy it is. So something is going on with this tree that this app is picking up on. I can't energy, something, but it's just fascinating to me. And whenever I'm filming something like this, I always try to film around me and show other trees to show that it's not on everything. It's not like the app picks up something on every single thing. It doesn't. But this wood on this wood pile had come from trees that were growing on that property. So what does that mean? I don't know, but I'm finding it fascinating to mess around with this app. And you had it on your phone, I think. Who else? Did somebody else have it on their phone?
No, I think it was not that trip. But CJ called and said, you ought to fire this up before you go. So prior to the camping trip, we were up in Central City and a lot of haunted buildings up there. We went to this restaurant and they ran music, and I pointed it at a pillar and there was a figure standing there, and it was a really good song playing, like Mustang Sally or something. And it's standing there dancing right along to the tune.
It was dancing in rhythm to the song, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Exactly with it. So I took it upstairs, and when I walked in a room, I pointed it at the desk, and there was one sitting at the desk, and it had its arms around my purse. And it was just sitting there like holding it or touching it. So I walked up there, it went away, I went back, it went back. So we're kind of playing with it in the room. And Then we
Yeah.
took it to the camping trip.
So this next video is the tree we're talking about, this big tree, and just play it without sound. This is what I filmed when I went and filmed the tree. And so this, whatever this is, this figure is as tall as the tree. And I think I filmed, let me see, I hope I filmed the other trees, but yes, we did touch the tree. I didn't get any sense of something, but others did strongly. Did you touch the tree ever, Shari?
I did not.
Okay. But but I went around and looked at the other trees surrounding this. There was nothing, no energy, no images like this. So I would love to understand, and if any of you understand how an SLS camera works or what the principle is behind the technology, let me know so I can let everyone else know, because I'm fascinated by it, just because I keep finding things like this where there's something about that tree that's not true of the trees around it. So, but yeah, it's try this app out. I don't remember that. I don't think the app costs, if it costs anything, it's a nominal cost, but.
Well, and I did the same thing, Jim. Saw the tree, received the same pictures and nothing anywhere else.
Yeah. So two phones, 2 copies of the app.
Apps, yeah.
So it's fascinating. It's bizarre. Some other things happen at the tree that I'm not at liberty to tell because I haven't asked the people involved if I could, but this was some very significant things happened next to this tree after that second walk in there. Then that evening, so we had our dinner. This is the last evening we were there. We'd had our dinner. Jill and I were dealing with the horses, and Jill smells something, and she says, "Oh, what is that smell?" And I'm sniffing, and I can't smell anything, but I notoriously have not a great sense of smell. But she kept smelling it and smelling it. So that turned all of our attention. Let's see, Sasquatch and hang out inside the trees. Well,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I'm asking what's going on here. And they said, we are the tree. So there's a whole dimension to the Sasquatch people that is hard for us to get our head around, because they tell us that if you listen. So the fact that you see them and now you don't, and there's a lot of things that happen. And the trees are significant. And, a lot of the things when we're hiking around, I'll stop and I'll say, I feel you. And they'll go, well, you're looking right at me. And I'll be looking at a tree, and then I'll see it start to shimmer, and they'll go, yep, that's me. And what do you do? It's like, okay, hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but again, people have these experiences. They hesitate to talk about them, and some people don't. They have other experiences with the Sasquatch people. They kind of present themselves to you however you can understand them. So I interrupted.
If any of you know of Matthew Johnson, Dr. Matthew Johnson, he's fairly controversial, but his perspective is that they live in the trees and that they go in and come out from trees. And so he would even say that what we are hearing as knocks or as tree knocks sometimes is the sound of them coming out or going into a tree, which is an interesting concept. I'm not here to evaluate his perspective, but he is one who has that, and he's a very well-known researcher, and he has that perspective. So
if I may,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. You know me well enough. I'm going to wait. This is
go for it, Shari.
I'm going in.
You're not going to offend me.
No. Now, a lot of people poo-poo this stuff, right? And we've talked about it at length. Sure. And at first, none of us even knew what to think about it. But even you look at scientists and they'll take radio waves. You can't see them, but they affect things. Or you could point it at water. What are we
Gravitational
mostly?
pull or
Water.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that's really not that far-fetched if you have a creature that can raise their vibration enough, because that's, I mean, you could take your hands and put it, everybody out there, just start putting your hands together like that. You can feel magnetic. That's your own energy. So
Yeah.
if you're sophisticated enough to be able to walk into a tree, you know, I think that's absolutely possible just from things we've seen.
Well, there's a lot of people who would say, who I've been listening to and reading of late, that would say Sasquatch, their normal state is invisible. So their vibration level is high enough that we can't see them. We see them when they lower it down to a level that our eyes can perceive, can see them. So it wouldn't be a big stretch if that's the case. It wouldn't be a big stretch for them to disappear just by changing their vibration while we're watching them. And people that have seen them say they just kind of dematerialize, you know, things like that.
Well, remember the story you were telling too about the fellow who, I'm making up numbers, but he had 20 cameras around his camp, and he was going to catch one because they were around there, and he had cameras everywhere. Nothing was hidden.
No.
And yet they'd get up in the morning and things would be moved. And how do you explain that? Well, you can't, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. I mean, again, there's so much compelling evidence, and I want to talk to you about that too sometime. But I mean, that your elk in the snow and the eye shine. So after we were going to talk about on the mountain.
So because something important happens here. So because she smelled something, it turned all of our attention that direction. So behind the last tents were some trees, and then there was kind of an open area, and then another tree line, and it was just dusk. It was just getting dark, and you had something happen.
Yeah, I'm sitting there and I see one of the horses just perk up and just stare. And so we're talking, and I'm watching the horse going, what is that? And there goes a Sasquatch, and he runs 3 big steps to a clump of trees. And I'm going, you guys right there, look, look, look. And so everybody's turning, and it was dark brown or black. And then it went 3 more steps, enormous steps, to the next clump. And then he was gone. So we started watching that clump, and all of a sudden there's eye shine. Right.
And you actually said, who's that walking over there? And we were all together. And so you said, who's that walking over there? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Somebody walking. I'm looking. I never could see it, but it was, you clearly saw it, because it was like your first thought was, is that a person walking over there? Or who is that? Because it was just us and the horses. That was it. Nobody else was out there.
No, and we're eating. So, who's going to leave the table, right? Yeah.
Right. Who's going to leave the table?
Not when Jill's cooking, right. But it was so significant. And then we watched the eye shine move from this spot all the way around the valley. And then another one showed up. There was a tall red and a shorter white, or maybe the other way around. I don't remember. But there were 2 of them, and you'd see the eye shine, and then it would disappear. Then you'd see it further down the hill. And we watched it all the way down the valley. So
did you say that their eyes were different colors?
Yes.
One was red and
one was white. And Jill even said every time she smells that, there is one. She sees one. So we were looking at each other going, all right, let's see it.
Well, she's got them on her property enough that she knows when they're around. And these ones that we've been out there before. This wasn't the first time we'd been to that location. And so I think when we showed up again with the horses and everything, they probably knew that it was us. And so you, that was the second evening, and then the night happened with the little one running around. And so I'm trying to remember what else happened that we can talk about, because the next morning we wanted to go look at the same place with the arches to see if it had changed again. And I think it had. There were some more trees overhanging the trail. They weren't crossed like the other time, but they were hanging over
I
the
had
trail.
never seen this. It was so beautiful. They took 2 aspens side by side and bent them over the trail and then hooked them together, but they weren't tied down. So somehow they made them.
Well, they were pulled. You could see where they were pushed out of the dirt.
Yeah, the dirt was
enough
fresh.
to make them lean over, and so
and it was fresh. It had just happened.
So this stuff was happening while we were there, which I've honestly never seen before on a trip. Seeing that much stuff happen that close to camp while we're at camp,
Basically, real time.
Real time.
Yeah, that was in real time. It was magnificent.
But we didn't hear. I don't recall us hearing tree knocks at night, things like that.
I didn't hear you.
You were too busy getting zapped and hearing footprints around the tent.
I know. Well, at one point they completely knocked me out because something happened. And Janelle told me the next day, I tried to wake you up and you didn't wake up.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't
Interesting.
Heavy.
No, you don't. You don't.
No, I said, I don't know what happened. Where was I?
It was interesting because you were wondering if that zapping might not have had some healing effect.
Yes.
I don't suppose you've had a chance to check anything to see if that could have happened to you.
I have. Excuse me, I have not, but I feel different. I can't put my hand.
Okay.
I can't describe what it is yet. So
I've got my bum knee. I went to the tree to see if I could get healing for my knee, and it didn't happen. It's weird because it's often, it seems to me, with people that I've heard who've been healed ostensibly by a Bigfoot, in none of those cases were they looking for it. It just happened. It happened. They needed healing. They were sick, but they weren't asking. It just, a decision was made again that they would receive enough power to heal them. And in 3 cases actually, the person subsequently went to the doctor and validated that they no longer had the problem that they had. And these were serious problems. So terminal in one case. And so if you've not listened to that podcast, when I had Harriet McFeely on, she told the story about being with a group of women, and one of whom was healed miraculously of terminal cirrhosis of the liver overnight. And to my knowledge is still fine today, 5 years later. So, so it was a crazy trip. I mean, it was very active, but not with the things that I'm typically used to. This was a much more, how would I describe it? Paranormal trip than is typically the case. So, Shari, if you were told, as you said, knocked out, could that be tied to missing time people describe?
Could be.
100%. Other people I know who've been zapped have lost time. They absolutely know they lost time. So,
well, and I have a witness because I couldn't be awoken. And of course, she didn't get aggressive about it from the other side of the tent, but it was.
She wasn't throwing stuff at you to wake you up, but
maybe I don't know.
Maybe she was. But you didn't wake up. That's the main thing.
Clearly. Jim, you did such a good job on that trip, and I can't tell you how much fun it was. And
well, it was fun. We had some awesome conversations around the fire when we were out in the woods at night. It was a great group. We all got along really well, and
different perspectives on things.
One was brand new to this whole concept, and the others were a mix of levels of experience and things. But great questions. And when we're sitting around the fire, as far as I'm concerned, there's no taboo subjects. We're out there enjoying nature and enjoying each other's company. And somebody wants to start talking about something, go for it. If other people have anything to add or take away from it, then they will. But That's what's fun to me, is where these rabbit trail of conversations go when we're just talking. And so, yeah, fascinating. I'm still learning so much about this whole other realm, that the invisible realm, talking with Sasquatch in our minds, or being spoken to in our minds, and things like that, that I have a lot more to learn. Sherry's in, I'm in 101. Sherry's in 501.
Dragging you along, Jim.
So, you are dragging me along. So
can I say one more quick thing?
You can.
Some of the people you have come into your facility, and if you haven't been to the Outpost, you guys did an extraordinary job. But the stories are so compelling. And how many times have we heard? I've never told anybody this, but, and I'm telling you, it's eye-opening to me how they could get it off their chest, and it's all the time. So when people go, well, they don't exist, it's like, I gotta push back on that one. There's too many credible people that come in, and they're so glad to have a place to tell it, because everybody thinks they're crazy. So
I don't know if anyone else
crazy space, Jim.
No, I know. Notice Tammy just says you had an orb behind you while we've been sitting here. I noticed a light behind you, and until she just said that, it never dawned on me. It's not there now, but you had it behind. You could see it shining out behind your head. I'll have to replay this afterwards. And that could have been an orb. I don't know. That's really interesting.
My head is pounding. Holy cow.
Is it?
Tammy, call me.
Yeah. So.
Well, there you go.
There you go. There's another example.
Demonstration on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Full service podcast.
It was, if I remember, I think there was a greenish light behind your head. And is that what you saw, Tammy? Because I didn't even think what that was. I just thought, oh, it's interesting that the lights changed outside or something, but it wasn't the light from outside. And so,
well, there's nothing green in here. As you can see, I'm kind of red.
No, there's nothing green, and there's no light behind you. But yeah, I don't get orbs behind my head when I'm doing this podcast. What's up with that?
I'll come down there. We'll do one live. I'll just sit in the corner with you.
Sherry of the orbs. We've had them in the museum when we've done things in the past, in the main room where the big guy is. And you can see him floating around the room through your camera. You couldn't see him with your naked eye, but you put your iPhone up and you would spot one crossing the field of view, and like a giant dust particle. And so if you could turn your phone and track it, you could actually follow these things around the room. Most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And
well, look at some of the stuff you have in there. I mean, they might have attached to the horsehair and the braided tags.
No doubt.
It's amazing.
It was white. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to go back and look. Now everyone's going to want to go back and rewatch this to see.
Sherry of the orbs. Oh. Okay,
that's your name from now on. Sherry of the orbs.
One of them. Yeah.
So one of them. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I need to have you back on so we can talk about some of the other many things that you've experienced that were separate from me, independent from me. And yeah, even though we went out on that first, one of those first hikes together, I don't know, somehow I stayed in the high school diploma era and you moved on to college. And so I look for opportunities to hang with you because there's always something to learn. So,
and we laugh.
And we laugh and we have a good time and we make fun of each other, and it's all in love. So it's great to have friends like that who you've known long enough and you trust their friendship enough that you can be honest about things and you can give each other a hard time and you know that it's all in love. Yep. So,
well, and Daphne's the same way. You're great people. You're always so hospitable when I come up there. So,
well, you are very welcome. We love having you. Yeah. Hitchhikers. You may have had a hitchhiker behind your head. So you're welcome, Patricia, and thank all of you for being with us. And it's easy when you have great guests like Shari. So
Thanks.
so keep looking for the information on now I got a brain fart.
Montana.
No, not Montana. The one I'm doing with Jonathan. That's so funny. I can't think of the name I gave to the conference. But you'll be getting emails from Steph about Jonathan and Stan Cumming and Native Truth, Sasquatch Native Truth 2. So, and yeah, so next week, as I said, a fantastic interview with the mother and daughter, Sage and Sissy. Sage is half Choctaw, and very, very interesting. I would say just about as interesting as Jim Duggar, although it's really hard to beat Sasquatch standing right in front of you for minutes on end. So, as always, we love having you guys. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in every week. And the network continues to grow, and it's because of you guys, and we're very grateful. And until then, we will see you next time, and keep on squatching.